Amateur. Welcome back to episode 232 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, we'll find out shortly. There's no guests tonight, but there is two hosts in theory. One of them will be joining us soon. He's just running a little bit late. God bless you. So while we wait for him, we will just say hello to country number 64. And oh man, it's a big one. Oh man, dude, where in the world's that?
I know where Oman is, I think. It's sort of out UAE way, isn't it, over there somewhere? Probably Dale on his travels again at some point, no doubt. But Dale, if it is you, thank you very much. And if it isn't you, thank you, whoever it is.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Absolutely. Speaking of joining us,
he's here. He's here, the lad is. He's woken up from his weekly slumber and he's back.
Yeah. Woken up in a hangover from watching England yesterday. How are we doing, Dave?
I'm all right, thank you. Sorry, I'm momentarily late there. I do apologise.
That's okay. Don't do it again. Bottom of the glass. Sort yourself out. Could do better. Bit like England, really, but there we go. Less said about that, the better.
Well, this episode goes out in about 10 days' time, so who knows? England may very well have won a trophy by then. Probably not. Wouldn't spoon.
Probably, yeah, probably. Oh well, you never know. We're not going to talk about the Euros because we've been there, done that. So I think we should talk about something completely different.
Indeed. So also something else that will have happened by the time this episode goes out is there will have been a general election. The results will have been announced. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a little look at really voting tactics. And we're going to be having a little look at what or how we should be considering to vote in the Congleton constituency, which is where we are based. So we live in Alsager. You know, for the folks out there in the world, we'll listen to, as we now know, in 64 different countries. Tell the folks a little bit about Alsager.
So if you don't know where it is, I always say to people when they say, "Oh, where do you live? Where is it near?" You can't help but sort of say it's near Sandbach Services on the M6 because that's what everybody pretty much says. But now I always think if you just sort of draw a triangle pretty much between like Birmingham, Manchester, and Liverpool, we're sort of in the middle. So we're about 45 minutes away from Liverpool, 50 minutes maybe. We're about 45 minutes from Manchester, 45 minutes from Birmingham. So in the Midlands, we're sort of classed as, well, you see, I'd say sort of almost northwest, but maybe West Midlands, maybe. We're right on the sort of Cheshire, Staffordshire border, and we're one of those really weird places that actually we are in Cheshire, but we have a Stoke postcode. So we have an ST postcode, even though actually we are within the Cheshire boundary. So we are Cheshire East as a council, but actually we have a Stoke postcode, which is a Staffordshire postcode, which is a bit weird. But yeah, no, look, Alsager, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a massive sort of history buff as such, but I would suspect that it sort of grew with sort of the Radway Green and the building of the ordnance factory that's there, and they built a couple of estates, and then schools came along and it sort of grew. And then I suppose because we've got really, really good transport links, we've got the motorway network is amazing. Literally the M6, which is span the country, runs right up it's literally like 2 minutes away from Alsager sort of thing. People felt as though it's quite good sort of transport links. If you're into trains, Crewe is 10, 50 minutes away, and that's like obviously the mecca for train spotters and sort of thing in the middle of the country. So we've got quite good transport links. Manchester Airport's only sort of 45 minutes away, so I think it's quite a decent place to settle. We've got a couple of outlying villages that seem to be growing, and therefore new estates in Alsager are growing and so on. Very successful school. It's been numerous times sort of outstanding. It's now, I think it's just been good now. Thinking its last inspection, I might be wrong there. I apologise if that is the case, but I think it's good. So no, look, it's a lovely place. It's a lovely place to live. Quite an affluent place, I would suspect. You don't really see it when you live in it, but I suspect it is quite affluent. I think people that don't live in Alsager will always sort of say, "Oh, that's quite a rich area." I wouldn't say rich, but I don't think it's the sort of poorest area around.
No. So yeah, it's been around as well since 1089 for fans of history. And in the last census, there's just under 14,000 people that live here. That was about 4 years ago. I suspect it's grown somewhat since then. Dave, you got anything to add to that, pal?
It was 1086 actually. We're in the Doomsday Book.
Yeah, there you go. Oh,
was it? Okay.
Yeah, 1086. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm actually from Church Lawton, which is just next to Alsager. So, but you know, for all intents and purposes, certainly this end of Church Lawton, it's the same village, really. No, as Gaz said,
do you still call it village or you call it town?
We always call it the village.
Well, yeah, we do. That's what we do. Because literally, growing up, like, what are you doing? I'll go down the village or going down the Vill, going down the Vill, going down. What's the Vill? Yeah, the village. Actually, it's now more than a village, and it is a town. But you never say I'm going down the town. Where are you going to? I'm going down the village.
The village, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, technically it's a town, although there's not a great deal here to qualify that. And for the last, I don't know how many years, we have had a Conservative MP representing us in court. That was a Freudian
a slip of the tongue.
Freudian slip in Parliament, yeah. So
with all the betting going on recently, you never know.
Yeah, let's touch on that. What do we make about that? Funny enough, when we chatted to Biggie, we mentioned then, you know, and this was before some of the betting scandals came out, that actually you got pretty good odds beforehand of an election being in July. So it's a bit shifty, isn't it? That
it's a bit shifty. It's also a bit shifty when you get politicians betting on themselves to lose. I mean, that's a bit rogue, isn't it? Hey, hi guys, don't vote for me, vote for the other guy. You know what I mean? It's a bit like, yeah. And look, I suppose the analogy, with these sports people that bet on themselves, maybe to win a game or whatever, I sort of understand that. And I'm not saying, is there something wrong with it? Yeah, probably, but there's less wrong with that than actually betting against yourself. To bet against yourself in an election is pretty ropey and it's pretty dodgy.
It is, but what about the people with what we're looking at? I mean, to be fair, that outcome isn't known. The guys who
I reckon I could hazard a guess.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously not confident, the lad, bless him. But you know what is known was the date of the election, when, in all likelihood, when these people were placing bets. So that's pretty immoral, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. But
my view on the whole thing is it's I get the seriousness of it, and if people have insider information and they're gambling, whether it's on the election or football or sport or anything, it's against the law. So it's an offence. It's quite simple, isn't it? If you've got insider information, you bet it's wrong. But that aside, because it happens to be politics, it does get blown up to ridiculous proportions. And the media, as is the media, they smell blood and they think, how many careers can we wreck? How many people's lives can we destroy? Because on the whole, I reckon most of these people probably just either had a bet. One guy's come out and said, yeah, I had a bet months ago on it being July, and I was right. So what, kind of thing. And there's some that will have had the inside information and must have known it was wrong to put the bet on it. That's bang out of order. They should be gone. And then there's others that have just heard that somebody else has bet on it and think that he may have known and may have not. It's just bad judgment. But does it need to have their whole careers wrecked because they heard that Bob over there put a bet on and they think he's right, so they've done it as well and they've won 50 quid? It's just way out of proportion for me.
I think you're probably right, Dave. I think, as you said, I think the guy that has the insider trading, the insider knowledge, he needs to go. He's been told in confidence, and I'm not saying this has happened, by the way, and I don't want anybody to come and sue me. I'm just purely conjecture on what you've heard and read, etc. But if he has got insider information, he's been told effectively in confidence, and he's gone then to place a bet, then bang out line. Bar him from the parties, don't allow him to run again, etc. I think the other fringe people, I don't know, do they have insider knowledge? No. As you said, Dave, do they just surmise that the guy that has put the bet on has insider knowledge? Maybe, but they don't actually know that. So are they just taking a punt, which actually ultimately is what gambling is all about anyway? So are they just gambling on the fact that he knows or he doesn't know? And I don't know the answer to that. It just doesn't sit well with me that if it's somebody within a political party that knew the date or has some information that the date could be either that one or that one, and has then gone out and placed a bet. That doesn't quite sit right with me, if I'm honest. But
so here's a question, and I'm not going to answer this one for purposes of it potentially affecting my employment. What are your thoughts on actually should bookmakers be taking bets on people who are on elections and that sort of thing? Just is that a bit wrong in itself? Do you think?
without sounding or trying to offend anybody's employer or any bookmakers out there, I think they're out to make a quick buck, and I think any fucking market that they can create a betting market on, they probably will. And I think if they could create a betting market on fucking tiddlywinks in the local hall on a Friday night, or dominoes on a Saturday night with some 5 octogenarians or whatever, then I think they probably would. But I suspect, look, nothing is off the menu, is it? Everything is fair game, and you can bet on anything these days. So no, I don't think they're wrong in creating a market. I think they would have to go through their due diligence to ensure that any bets placed were placed according to sort of rules of fairness and all this, that, and the other. So no, I don't blame the bookies at all, if I'm honest. They just provide an opportunity, and if people want to take that up, then so be it.
I take a different view. I think bookmakers generally are, they're not great. There's a difference between betting on a football match, betting on a horse race, betting on a sporting event that's got a defined outcome there and then, and you're betting because you're enjoying that activity and you get that extra bit of fun that I might win 20 quid if that result comes my way, whatever, whether it be a score or a result. But I think it just starts to get ridiculous when you can bet on, you could place a bet on, when the election's going to be in 5 years' time. I could probably go to a bookmaker and say, I'm going to say it's going to be, May 2029, what are my odds? And they'll take a bet and they'll just take your money. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, why do it? It's just pointless. And it's just, creating more of a culture of gambling, and it's just making gambling and betting more normalized, more part of everyday life. And the wider they can spread it, the more it affects more people, the more money they make, and more lives are made miserable.
Well, yeah, I sort of agree with you there, but until it's what's the word I'm looking for, made illegal, or until it, to such an extent where bookmakers can't exist, why would they not offer that? And if you want to put that bet on, then why would you not be able to do that? It's like these people that turn around and say, I'm going to put 20 quid on my lad who's 6 months old to play for England before he's the age of 21 or whatever. And it's like, really? It's like, well, if you want that, and it was like it's like 1,000 to 1 or something. Can't remember what the stats. There's like a standard figure. It's like 1,000 to 1 or 2,000 to 1 or something. Like every dad that puts a bet on his lad to play for England is like 1,000 to 1. That's it, sort of thing. But why not? You have the opportunity to. And look, we can go down the rabbit hole of bookies and betting and bet responsibly, which the Odds Fellows spoke about when we did the Odds Fellows series of podcasts, and we spoke about gambling responsibly and all this, that, and the other. And the bookmakers are, whether you think it's just lip service, they are putting things out there just to say gamble responsibly, but it's not illegal to bet. So therefore, why, if you want to bet, would you not be allowed to?
Moving on. I don't want to get myself in any bother. So, let's have a look. Should we have a look at our count now? Bear in mind, as we're discussing this, when this goes out on the audio version, the live version, the video version is going to be out as of tomorrow to watch as well. This result, will be known for the audio, but not for the others. So, Dave, I presume you've got it up on your screen now. I'm going to ask you not to look too closely at it. Do you know who is the Conservative candidate in this election?
I don't have it, actually. I've got the football on. I'm doing a Gaz. It's Fiona Bruce, I believe.
It is Fiona Bruce. I'm assuming you knew that one.
I
knew
it. Yeah, I knew it was Fiona Bruce.
Yeah, so Fiona Bruce. We'll steer away from betting. What are the odds then? What are the odds on Fiona Bruce retaining?
If I was a betting man, look, I think I actually think she's got relatively good odds locally. I don't know. I mean, Alsager has a bit of a history of, I would say, sort of Lib Dem stroke Tory. I don't suspect it's got a massive sort of Labour history. I might be wrong. That's just my perception. I think her odds are quite good. I would suspect.
Dave, do you think she's likely to retain a seat?
I would imagine so. I mean, I don't know if you've got odds there. I don't know if you're asking for specific odds or it was a generic.
No, I have got specific odds, but they are
2-1.
Oh, no, slightly better than that. So she's 5-4 to retain a seat. So
nearly even money.
Nearly even money, yeah. So do you suppose then that she's the favourite to win?
She's got to be with those odds, hasn't she?
No, I don't know. I don't suspect she is. I don't suspect
she isn't the favourite.
I suspect she might be the second favourite
after
toilet paper.
Toilet paper, yeah, the Labour Party. To be honest, actually, this is the second Conservative letter I've had. The other one got ripped up and put in the bin. So it's only because it's come tonight that
you've kept it. You're talking about it.
Probably should keep it, yeah. So yeah, who's the Labour candidate then for us? You know we love a good quiz. Do you know who it is?
I've read them all that have come through the door, including the Independents, and I have read them all, but I can't remember even though it was
I can't remember.
No, so it's Sarah Russell. Again, I don't know too much about her either, but yeah, we won't focus too much on the odds. But yeah, she's 8-13, dude. So
she's odds on.
She's so she's where the sensible money would be theoretically. But you guys seem. Are you convinced of that Tories are going to?
I'm not, and the only reason I say that I think Fiona Bruce might get in is from what I've said. Really, I think your local elections. Alsager has had a history of the Lib Dem, and they've had a history of Tory. So I think locally, if you were voting just locally, and we'll perhaps get into this in a minute, which is what we said off air a minute ago, Adam, in terms of, do you vote locally for who you believe is the right candidate for you locally, or do you vote nationally? Because it doesn't really matter. You could, the Monster Raven Looney Party could do an amazing job in Alsager, but you'd never really vote for them because it doesn't mean fuck all, because they won't get a national in, therefore they don't really have the remit to make change. So it's how you vote in terms of, is it locally or regionally or nationally. I think just historically, Alsager's never really been a Labour seat. So I wonder. Hi, by the way. I wonder whether or not. I don't know. I just don't see Alsager being under Labour. I don't.
Dave, do you see it happening?
I think everything's a bit up in the air, isn't it? I think I'm probably with Gaz. I think when the push comes to shove, there'll be enough to keep Fiona in our ward, in our not ward, that's local council's constituency. But yeah, I think beyond that, it's a different picture. But I think locally, I think we'll be all right. We'll be safe, folks.
There you go, Fiona. If you're listening, Dave says stick 200 quid on it. So, and allowed to leave from the Boo Brothers. Yeah, so Liberal Democrats, guys, that's who you've said that, you thought potentially have a chance. So this fella, where's his name? Paul Duffy, 20-1.
Yeah, look, outsider, plenty of, and I'll say 3-horse race, 20-1 winners have come in. I don't suspect.
Oh, no, sorry, he's 100-1.
He's 100-1.
Yeah, misread it. This fella's 20-1. The Reform Party.
Wow.
Martin York. I don't know Martin York. I'm not going to say something terrible about him because I don't know him, but I do know my feelings on the Reform Party. I think these could be a big challenge, Dave, to the Conservative Party. I think this is what's going to damage your vote more than the Labour Party. If some of the Tory voters vote for these guys, that's where it could leave it open for Labour in some constituencies. That's my concern, and I suspect that could also potentially be the case, because we're not talking about just Alsager, we're talking about the whole area, Holmes Chapel, Congleton.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to that. Mr. Farage will say various things, and if you. And it's one of those, isn't it? Is that, do I think nationally the Reform Party will get enough votes? No. Do I think nationally the Reform Party will have enough votes to influence the result of the vote? Yes, potentially. And again, and that goes, and it's that is it catch-22, whatever it may be, in terms of do you vote locally or do you vote for the party nationally because they're likely to then get into government, and that's the crux of it, I suppose.
Yeah. And
With
Or you're voting for that guy, or you're voting for Nigel Farage, I suppose what I'm saying.
yeah, and that's what we, once we've covered off our local candidates, that's the question we'll get to. David?
I was just about to say that, you said, is it a question of taking votes for Conservative? And it's right, it will. And it's when if you go back to the by-elections over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, and the headline was always massive swings to Labour. But actually, if you looked at the data, Labour, often got 1,000, 2,000 votes less than they did at the general election. It's just that Conservative voters didn't come out. So it's not that the country is moving to Labour, it's that they're moving away from Conservative. And the problem is when you first pass the post system, they can completely knacker you.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty spot-on analogy, actually. I don't think everybody's convinced that Keir Starmer is going to be the man to save the country, or the Labour Party are going to make some significant difference. I think there's just people are just sick to death of the Tories. And finally, there are a couple of the candidates who I'll touch on, but the last one that I have a leaflet from is Rob Morton. God bless him. Rob Morton is an independent candidate. And do you know why I say God bless him? Because out of all the candidates, he's the only one decent enough to follow us on Instagram. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but fair play to him, and you have my vote.
You've won us over, Rob. Well done.
But again, you read his leaflet, and he's talking about local issues. This is coming back to your point, Gaz, Bill, your question. He's talking about local issues, the things that he's championed for, and the change and difference he's made locally, and that's what he's standing for.
But I agree with you, David, and I suppose therein lies the issue is, yeah, he might be championing our local issues, but actually, how much influence can he have as the party, as an independent? How much influence, how much change can he actually affect? And I suppose that's the crux of the question that I'm asking, really. And as I say, look, don't get me wrong. I think, if an independent stood and Alsager became independent, and God bless him, he got into post. If I genuinely felt as though he could genuinely make a difference to my life in and around Alsager and in and around our local community, you would possibly think that you might vote for him. The issue that you've got is, with the greatest respect, and it might be my naivety in terms of the political system, he's got fuck all chance of that happening because of the political power and the political party that will get in nationally. They will effectively make mandate changes and legislation changes and everything else that will then filter down locally. I don't know what your thoughts are, Dave. I don't know whether you agree, disagree, or what.
No, I think actually independence can, it's not as black and white as you're in one party or the other party, and therefore that's your only view. Because MPs, not only do they support and champion local causes, and they have that voice in Parliament, but they're obviously interacting with the civil servants and the spending of those departments and where those budgets go, and they're having influence at that level. But they also, as part of their parliamentary work within government, they're always joining committees and subcommittees which are discussing laws, legislations, change, process, and they can have a positive impact if they've got an area of expertise or a passion to make difference from within government. And when it comes to actually voting on things, there's an awful lot of votes. There's hundreds of votes that go through Parliament every year, and the vast majority of them are just basically passing through legislation that's been through committee process where people like, whether it's independent or not, it's people that are genuinely trying to do good and make difference, and the committee comes up with the legislation that they think is fair and right, and then it's voted on, and most of it is not contentious. And the only time it comes to be contentious is when it's a big issue. There's a big difference in policy between the two major parties. And at that point, Rob's, I was getting mixed up with Bob Mortimer, you see, when I saw his name. His vote is the same weight as anybody else's vote, whether it be Conservative, Labour, Liberals, anyone's, apart from Sinn Féin, who won't be there. But so his vote is just the same. It's one vote, 1 out of 650 or 49 if you exclude the speaker. So, it's just as valuable. And I think as an independent, if we had more independents, if we had like 50 or 60 independents in government, I think that would be really quite powerful and way, way better than a hung parliament between like the Liberals and the Labour or the Greens and Labour or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a really good take on it. The other side of it as well is, so, this fellow, I think he's currently a councillor in Congleton Borough at the moment. So, he's in touch with people and how they want to vote for me. He's got a good idea of what the electorate want in this constituency. And ultimately, I'm not saying that isn't the case for the other people who are standing and potentially could get in. But say you're a part of the Conservative Party, you've got the whip. You are occasionally told to vote a certain way.
Yeah.
This fella won't be. He will potentially be voting with our interests in mind. If we're voting for this guy to do that, we're placing our trust in him. We're almost signing a contract with him. I think that's the way to do it. We're asking you to represent us and our wishes. And there's probably an argument to say that independents, like you say, I'm not sure 650 independents would get a lot done. I think there's an argument to say you do need a controlling party.
I think I said 50 or 60. I think I said not 650.
No, but would there been 650 constituencies? If everybody's local wishes were represented there, by an independent candidate, then you'd be talking 650 independents, which would be extreme and unlikely.
Yeah.
Good odds, I would imagine. Fiona Bruce, put your purse away. I wouldn't take your money on that one.
No. I think you're right. I just think.
Oh, just for that, I'm not implying that Fiona Bruce is guilty of any bet. I don't want any comeback. It's just a silly, petty joke. I'm sure
nobody will say anything. Yeah. Nobody will say anything. You're absolutely fine. We'll put a rider on at the end of the show or something like that.
Isn't that a betting term? A rider on?
It might be. No, look, I think you need your. Yeah, the issue with the independence would be that there'd be no effective, there'd be no strategy. There'd be no joined up thinking, because everybody would be wanting lots of different things, I suppose. So I don't know. I just independents are independents, and they are where they are. I just. And it's the issue we had with like Lib Dems going back, and I know there's the hung parliament whenever it was back in the day, but actually relatively not that long ago. But really, we're a little bit like America, where we're just a two-party country, aren't we? Really,
we are now. If the polls are to be believed, then Reform could potentially overtake Conservatives if the polls are to be believed. But one thing we know about the polls are.
You can't believe them.
Exactly.
Somebody said to me, "You're going to vote for?" Oh, yeah, Labour, 100%. Somebody else asked me the following day, "Who are you going to vote for?" Oh, Reform. Really? Yeah, 100%. And you just say it. You might not. People just say it. They don't really. And it go back to run the risk of opening another can of worms. You go back to Brexit and you look at, was it 51%, 49% or whatever it was, or 52, 48, but close. And then they did the same poll 2 days after the Brexit vote, and the vote was switched completely the other way. So actually, it was 52 or 51% said no, we want to stay, and 49 said no, we want to go, or whatever. So polls are polls, and they're never hugely accurate, I don't suspect.
No. I suspect you might be right there. So in terms of what is affecting us locally, or what is affecting us in the larger picture, how should we be considering to vote? Should we be looking at the likes of Mr. Morton? And just while we're there, I should probably mention the other candidates, being Rich McCarthy from the Green Party and Kay Wesley from the Women's Equality Party. I have odds for the Green Party is 150 to 1. I don't have odds for the other lady. I'm afraid they weren't. I couldn't find them offered anywhere. But yeah, so like we discussed this at the outset, when we vote, let's be honest, we likely think, you have your alignment with Conservative Party, Labour Party, whoever you align yourself with, and that's who you're going to vote with, because that you think is probably what aligns most with your core beliefs in terms of the economy and what you want to see happen outline. But do you ever think locally, well, I'm going to vote Conservative because I want to see Conservatives affect my constituency. I want to see how Labour affects my constituency, or whoever you vote for. Or are you always looking at the bigger picture? That's my question. And should we?
Always bigger picture when it comes to general elections, because the government in power and Parliament aren't going to have any direct impact in terms of policy and legislation on Alsager, where we live. Local elections is completely different, because the councillors are deciding where they spend the money they do have, and I think that is a completely different picture. And I think to touch on the independents, and for example, would I always vote Conservative for national reasons? Yes, but if, say, it was, and I've only been thinking this more recently, and probably only really thoughts only cropped into my head while I'm in this conversation. If, say, it was looking like a pretty comfortable Conservative majority across the entire country, and if Bob Mortimer was standing locally for us, and he had a reasonable shout because he'd got a bit of a profile, and people would think, he could win the seat, I'd give it serious consideration of voting for him, because I think that independent MP would do more for you, but I wouldn't do it if I thought there was any risk of losing a seat and therefore jeopardising the national government.
But do you not? I suppose, like any popularity contest, which basically is what it is. Do you not worry that if you feel as though, I don't know, it's relatively comfortable for the Tories, therefore you wouldn't vote for them and you'd vote for Bob Mortimer? Did you not then run the risk that, like,
he's the one guy who follows us on Instagram? Come on, give one of the other guys stick. Rob Moore.
So
Rob,
good old Bob. So Rob, do you not worry that then, if you're thinking that way, that then X thousands of other people are thinking that way, and then actually the landslide victory for Tory that you thought was going to happen, and that was the reason why you didn't vote for them, actually doesn't materialize in the first place, because so many people think like you, if that makes sense? So if you have your beliefs, then you have your beliefs, and then you just vote for them.
Well, yeah, so I probably just thought only cropped into my head a few minutes ago that in that unique set of circumstances, I may consider it. So I hadn't taken it to the next stage of thinking, which is, if you don't vote, it's like that every vote counts, isn't it? And some constituencies have been won or lost by 1 or 2 votes. Every vote really does count. And if you start to get complacent, this is what the Labour Party is trying to do at the moment, isn't it? They're trying to tell everybody that, no, we haven't won this, it's not a done deal, you've got to come out and vote. And the Conservatives, they tried with, what's his name, Grant Shapps, was it, who sort of kind of half said, oh, we've lost this election, and everyone's going, oh, why is he saying that? It's disgraceful. But we know why he's saying it, because he wants to make out that the Labour Party have got a landslide, therefore don't go out and vote. So it's all politics. But yeah, there is a danger that if you sit on your laurels and do something different and other people do it, it could actually backfire. But in the circumstances I was describing, I think it's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, interesting. Another thing as well, that potentially, and I guess we're not really looking locally here, we are looking more on a national scale. When you see the leaders debating on television, do you think that has an influence on how people vote?
Yeah, I do. I just think, and I think it has an influence. And I also think potentially how then, following those televised debates or whatever, how the written press, social media then portray who's won and who's lost. And I think that influences a lot of people. So I do think that people are influenced by it. And I do think people will generally think, oh, he did well, she didn't do well, or vice versa. Or I think it influences people. I think if there was a series of them, and I don't know, Starmer won this one, and then he was perceived to win this one, then he was perceived to win this one, then he was perceived to win this one, and down, he's almost perceived to win every one. Would that still be enough to persuade me? Maybe, maybe not. Do I think that would be enough to persuade lots of other people? Yes, maybe. And I think, I don't follow politics probably as closely as you two do, but I have my thoughts and my feelings and my beliefs, but I think there are some people that are slightly more marginal and therefore can be influenced, and I think that's the whole reason why you would do it. I wonder whether or not they're influenced by the reaction to the TV debate as opposed to the TV debate.
Oh, interesting. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, guys, you don't follow politics. You don't know that Keir Starmer's dad was a tool maker and his dad works in the NHS. Do you not know that? Apparently, that's central to the future of our country.
Is it? Is it
Yeah.
really? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that, but thank you very much for clearing that up. And what Sunak's parents? I mean, just while we're on about, I mean, I don't know how either.
Pharmacy. They're pharmacists,
Right. Oh, okay. Well,
which is also essential to the future.
Well,
and Rishi Sunak also grew up without Sky TV.
He did. Although there have been pictures circulating of the Sunak pharmacy with a Sky dish on the outside.
That's funny, that isn't it? Yeah, it's literally the dish is right there.
To answer the question, I think, I mean, there's a debate tonight, isn't there, with just Rishi and Keir on. And I was listening earlier about how the questions were formed, and it's a BBC one, and they use an independent organisation to get a balanced, in inverted commas, audience. And the questions are supposed to be ones that apply to both of them. So I'm sure the producers were really happy when the Labour guy got in on the betting stuff, because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to ask that question because it doesn't apply to both of them. I think what happens generally when you watch those things is the audience is fairly partisan on the whole, because the country is incredibly polarised and partisan. And when Rishi starts talking, all the anti-conservatives are shouting at the tally. And when Starmer starts talking, all the anti-Labour shout at the tally, and it just polarises those more. And there's probably that middle group of people, maybe 20%, maybe 25%, that are actually going to think, you know what, I was wavering between Liberals and Labour, and Starmer, he's done all right there. And there's one wavering between Reform and Conservative, and they might go one way or another. So I think I agree with you guys. I think there is an impact, and the audience response. So when Rishi Sunak says something and the audience all boo and hiss or laugh, laughing is the best one, not laughing with him, laughing at him. I think that's when people at home are more likely to kind of think, yeah, he's an idiot. Why I can't vote for him. So I think they do have an impact, but not probably in a way that any of us would want, which is proper grown-up discussion with proper questions and proper answers. And it's not just the politicians that cause the problem. It's because the presenters and the audience ask questions, which the whole intention is to back them into a corner. So they don't ask questions where they can actually have an open, sensible conversation about policies and change, because they're trying to trap them all the time. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to pick up. Sorry, I was just going to pick up something that you said there, Dave. Do you think then, and it's interesting that the four, I suppose, main parties that you mentioned there, do you genuinely think that if you don't vote for Reform, you vote Tory, and if you're so disillusioned with Tory, you vote Reform? Do you think that, what I'm trying to say, I suppose, do you think that Tory and Labour are so polarised that if you were once Tory, you will never vote for Labour, so therefore it's likely that if you were once Tory, it would be Reform, and therefore the flip side would be if you were once Labour, you'll never vote for Tory, so therefore you'll vote Lib Dem? Do you think that's the divide?
To a large extent, yes, but not entirely. I mean, I know people that will say, I think Adam even said it on the last episode, I will never vote Conservative again. And people say that, and I really can't fathom that, because I think that if you fast forwarded 5 years and say you didn't pay an awful lot of attention to politics, and then you wrote down the policies of the two parties and basically gave the not the memorandum, what's it called? The document, the manifesto, and you gave an unbranded manifesto and took out any language which would tell you which policy it was on, and then say who would you vote for, then okay, it might be a bit obvious because one's socialist and one isn't, but essentially I think a lot of the policies you'd probably potentially agree with, and people that say I'll never vote again, or they're basing it on personalities, and some policies are passed and some things that are changing. And I think to say I'll never vote for them irrespective of future policies is just crazy. But there are people like that, but there are also people that will change.
Yeah, but one thing I'll circle back to the point I was originally making when I asked the question 10 minutes ago, because we've got distracted again. But in terms of that, though, my issue with the Conservative Party has nothing to do with their policies. In terms of the economy, I would trust them ahead of Labour 100%. It's to do with the other nonsense and the Boris Johnsons, and to be honest with you, largely behaviour during the pandemic that I lost an awful lot of faith in politics in general, but mainly the Conservative Party. But we can go on to that in a second. But the point I was making about leadership debates before we got distracted there was the whole point is I asked for your opinion on it, and I was about to say, actually, interestingly enough, the expectation is it isn't going to influence the way you vote. Does that surprise you? Actually, what it does influence is whether you vote. When Rishi's up there, the point is he's getting the Conservative people to vote for him. With the Keir is getting the Labour folks to vote for him. And that's how it works, rather than actually influencing anybody. Because most people, like you say, a good portion have made up their mind. Another portion aren't going to be made up. Their minds aren't going to be made up by watching them. Actually, it's about drumming up the support and getting every single last Conservative out there to vote for Rishi and whoever is your local candidate. Because do you know what? Their backs are up against the wall. And the same for Keir. He's sort of thinking, if people get complacent now, this is where we lose this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not thought about it particularly from that point of view, but yeah, when you, I suppose you can look at the language in two ways, can't you? And if you put that thought into your head, when you've got Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak both saying the choice is clear, it's good stuff with us and bad stuff with them, and when you boil it down to that, which is what they say quite often in different ways, but essentially that. They're doing exactly what you said, Adam. They're saying, look, vote, get your vote out, because if you don't, you've got that car crash over there.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, just to go back then a little bit to what you're saying, in terms of what I'm saying, I'll never vote Conservative yet. At this point in time, I genuinely mean that statement. Don't get me wrong. 5 years from now, I might say I'll never vote. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to vote Labour this time. I'm sure I'm going to vote, but let me promise you this. Rob, you might be in luck. Sorry, Bob. No, in terms of Labour, I ain't going to vote for Labour. I can't bring myself to vote for Labour. I've been probably drummed into me by our family years and years and years. But it's the antics, it's the cronyism that's really bothered me with this Conservative government.
Do you not think, and I'm not saying this is the case, and I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, do you not think that your sentiment will be exactly the same with the Labour Party or the Lib Dems if they were in power during the pandemic and they made a buffoon of themselves and okay, Boris made some absolute fucking catastrophic mistakes and we all know what they are and they've all been documented, and whether it's Corbyn or Starmer or whoever it was, but at the time, had they been in power, they'd have made some absolutely fucking catastrophic mistakes. So therefore your perception of that person or that party would be skewed significantly. So I think that's just maybe
that's like saying, well, don't hate Lee Harvey Oswald because if he hadn't shot him, somebody else would.
No, I don't think it is. I just think that they were faced with a situation and a series of events that on a global scale that they had to make decisions. And don't get me wrong, I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying for 1 minute that I think that those decisions that they made were right. I just think to chastise them to the point that some people have and say, oh, I wish they would have been in or they'd have been in. They'd have made whoever that may be, they'd have made exactly this. Well, maybe not exactly the same, but they'd have made a significant number of catastrophic mistakes as well that you would then highlight down the line.
I see what you're saying, but the bottom line is they weren't in there. They didn't make those mistakes. Those people are to blame. Boris Johnson
genuine
is to
question
blame.
Genuine question for you then. Do you feel, and I don't know, and do you feel as though the Tory government, Boris and the Tory government, made the decisions during COVID with wanting the best for the British public?
No.
And I'm not saying I do or don't, by the way. I'm just asking that question. So do you feel as though some decisions that were made for either personal financial gain or personal political gain as opposed to the general not welfare, what's the word I'm looking for? Swell of opinion of the general populace.
The populace, his opinion was swelled by what the mass media was telling them. And that wasn't the same in every country. Sweden handled it entirely differently. Do I believe that at the beginning of the pandemic, they had our best interests at heart? 100% yes. 100% yes. But the things I saw, with the PPE, the awarding of contracts, the saying that people can't do this, you can't mix. Well, while they're having cheese and wine parties, and yes, I take it other people were doing it, Dave, before you say it, I know they were, but they weren't the people that telling you that you couldn't do it. These were the people saying categorically, it is not safe for you to mix. This is absolutely lethal. Well, guess what? The second the cameras are off, our masks are off, and we're having a glass of wine and taking the piss out of you guys behind here. Not a problem. Yeah, I think it's completely unacceptable. Would Labour have done the same under those circumstances? We'll never know. We'll need quantum physics. We'll need Steve to come back on and talk about that one and tell us about the alternative universe where
that did happen.
Where that did happen. You know what I mean? But I don't exist in that one. I exist in this one.
Well, you say that.
Or do I exist? Oh, don't get
the rabbit hole again.
Fucking hell, my head hurts from that.
I take a slightly different view. I think that the decisions on the whole, the vast majority of the decisions, were being made to the best of the capacity of the people that were trying to make the decisions that were there to do it. Now, when you've got this global pandemic going on and nobody really knows what's going to happen, and the government are doing absolutely everything they can, whether it be like ordering as much PPE as they can. We just heard on the news that there's, inverted commas, £1 billion worth that's being wasted. Now, at the time, they went and just bought as much as they could because they just thought this was going to be terrible. At the time, we didn't know we were going to have a vaccine. We didn't know how it was going to play out. And they just bought everything they could. Now, the fact is, we didn't need it all, and it's got a lifespan on it, and you can't sell it because the global market's flooded with it. So, yeah, we've had to bin it. Now, and everyone's going, what a catastrophic waste of money. Now, had a vaccine come 12 months later, that probably would have been used and saved a lot of lives. And then people wouldn't have been saying, what a waste of money. Yes, some people happen to reward contracts to people they happen to know. Well, when your job is to go and get a shitload of PPE,
see, that sounds proper dodgy.
Yeah. Dave,
to be fair.
Stick a blue tie on and a blue rosette on while you're saying that.
Did they not sign a pecuniary interest form when they start, and sign? Oh, come on.
Yeah.
When you've got,
I don't want my brother-in-law to benefit out of this. No, hate the guy.
When you've got to get a shitload of PPE and that's your job, and people's lives matter, and you happen to know somebody who can sort it out for you, or
I do
through a lengthy procurement process, then you're going to do what you've got to do. And if that means that somebody your mate or your mate's mate or your brother's sister-in-law lines their pocket, but the country still gets what it needs to save lives, I don't give a flying fuck.
I do.
We'll never really know, will we, until however many years' time, probably how long ago was it now? 5 years, 4 years ago, whatever. So we won't know for another 45 years, whatever, until some of the documents are released and this, that, and the other, and they become a public interest thing. But we don't really know behind the scenes. And some people will take this comment quite lighthearted, and I don't mean it to. Really, the pressures that the people that were making the decisions were under. You don't know the pressures that were put on the people to go out and source the PPE, to go out and create the vaccine, to go out and do this and go out and do that, in terms of the public pressure that they were under, and also B, potentially the personal and political pressure they were under to actually sort it out. If Big Boz turns around and says, right, you've got to go and source me 15 million pieces of PPE, you're like, okay, who do I go to? Oh, I know.
PPE firm, not guys next door.
But why, if I had a PPE firm, though? Why would you not?
A lot of them didn't know. This is the point.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Now, okay, you can turn around and go, did due process happen and this, that, and the other? But if I did, what? I'd be rich, but what would be wrong with that? You know what I mean? As long as you provide.
I'll be looking at your betting scandals here. How come he knew to invest in PPE now? Just like Rishi did.
But I bet what you wouldn't do is say, I won't go to Gaz because that won't make him rich. So you wouldn't think the flip side of that. You wouldn't say, I'm definitely not going to go to him because people might say this. What you would do is you would say, Gaz, there's an opportunity there. Put your tender in, put your bid in. We'll go through the due process, and the process and the bid will be awarded as per the guidelines of whatever the process is.
listen, I think you're glossing over the fact that the people here, there's 1.4 billion pounds worth of PPE that's going to be in that's perfectly functional. In the meantime, they were giving contracts to the mates. You know what I mean?
It's not perfectly functional. It's got a life. It's got a lifetime on it.
No. But it was purposefully functional when we needed it. So
when we used everything we needed, and then we had a vaccine, and we didn't need it anymore.
Well,
it's not complicated, is it? We need as much as we can. Let's get as much as we can. Right, we got more than we needed. Right, we don't need it anymore. It's gone out of date. Throw it away.
You can guarantee that if we didn't have, if the general populace and the general public felt as though we didn't have enough, yet there was more out there that we could have procured. And we didn't. Well, we never really thought we'd need that much. Well, fucking hell, do your math. Yeah, we need shitloads. You can guarantee that the whole shit's going the other way, because other people go, well, hold on, you needed 15 million. You only bought 5, but there was another 15 available. So why didn't you just buy fucking 20 and make sure that you had enough?
Now people have died because you wanted to save money and not overorder.
I'm not sure that's the case. So really, I think you're looking at it through rose-tinted spectacles. I really do. I think you're relying on a system that is designed there to function for us. And there's a part of me that believes that's how it's set up. I don't believe that's how it's functioned, certainly for the last 14 years. I think there's a lot of decisions made there. And you know what I mean? I'd like to see those files. If we have to wait 45 years for them, I ain't going to see them in all likelihood.
No.
95's a big ask.
It's a big ask.
For someone who enjoys beer quite as much as I do. And,
but I think, look, your public documents, and I'm assuming it's 50 years, is it, that they become?
Yeah, I imagine they'll be redacted.
They'll be redacted for a period of time.
I'll just give you a bit of an insight. This is through work, public sector tenders generally, right? So our business, we don't do them anymore because they're just a real pain in the arse. They take a load of time, and we actually think they're a bit unfair. But essentially, to tender for, a 50, 60 grand contract with a public sector council can take, months of work, and the tender process can take 6 to 12 months. And it's huge amounts of effort. And that's just for, diddly squat for a basic SaaS-based service. So, you just can't operate like that in a global pandemic.
No, I totally agree with you. And I would expect corners to be cut. I'm just not sure that they were done in a way that wasn't beneficial to the people who were cutting the corners. That's all I'm saying. And I believe you can honestly believe that our public servants are there just for that, to serve the public. I do not believe that they made decisions with our best interests at heart more with their own.
Question for you then. Do you believe that the people that cut the corners and therefore profited from those cut corners, do you believe the decisions that they made in terms of lining the pockets of their family members, if that's the case, then meant that we saved lives?
Do I think? No, I don't. I don't. Irrespective, I think you're missing the point there, to be honest with you. I don't look, I think the study as to whether masks save lives is that one's still open for a debate, if I'm really honest. I think that one does need to be looked at. And certainly I am not a scientist. I don't just follow the science, just for the record, but I'm not a scientist, so I'm not in a position to speak about it. But there's a number of articles out there that will tell you, actually, in terms of the way that masks are worn. And certainly I can tell you from my own personal experience from wearing a mask, I didn't follow the rules in terms of, I was constantly playing with the damn thing. Now, if you say, for example, it was believed to be surface contact at first, we then later learned that it wasn't. But I worked in retail. I was touching everything, touched everybody's food. I was touching a mask around my face. I must have readjusted that thing 50 times an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But PP was all about the NHS. It's not about us.
No. Listen. I take it, and I would hope that the NHS would be top of the list, getting their PPE from the people who would always provided it, because we know it's worked, we know it's trusted. I think it's the other stuff that went out there, and the other contracts of stuff, and that American fella who just took his money and invested it in property. Those are the people I've got interest with. I've got issues with. I have got no axe to grind with NHS. I've got no axe to grind with PPE producers who've done it legitimately, have won their contracts legitimately. I've got no interest. I've got no interest for them. And if they so happen to be the brother-in-law of Conservative MP and they were doing it in the first place, then that's fine by me. I've got no concerns. What I have got concerns with these people all of a sudden were making carpets and 10 minutes later producing PP and saying, here, have this, go on, I'll have it here. Put that guy off, you know what I mean? We'll have this guy as my brother-in-law. Oh, just so happens yes, I am on the board, but it was all within the best interest. Don't you worry, folks.
I think we poked the bear, Dave.
Yeah, I think that's been a bit feisty. Let's change subject.
Yeah. Anyway, what's the football score?
let's talk about something much closer to home.
Go on.
Paid car parks in our village, because this is what the episode's about to be. Politics begins at home. So with 4 minutes to go, let's bring it back to home. So we've got a village in the centre of our village. We've got a fairly decent car park, which means anyone can go and park and use the restaurants, the pubs, the charity shops, the supermarkets, the schools, and all that sort of stuff. And it's great. And the council, I believe, I think it's been approved that they're going to actually put car parking charges in. Now, I think there's windows around school drop-off and school pickup, which means it's probably going to not be too bad for schools. But for the general trade, I think it's going to be an absolute disaster for the village.
Yeah, well, full enough, this is the point I had noted down to talk about. We're local before we got distracted. So, yeah, I don't mind getting distracted. I enjoyed it. So, yeah, in terms of £3.40 for 10 hours of Fanny's Craft Gas, what do you think about that?
Everybody loves it. No, I'm not going to say. Look, look, I mean, do we all park in the village? Call it the village, yeah, not town. Do we all park in the village? Yeah, we do. Do we park in the village after, going for a night out and then think, oh, I'll just leave my car there and I'll walk up in the morning and get it? Yeah. Would we do that if there was an overnight charge? Would we do that if there was a significant charge for the following morning or that evening? Probably not. Does that deter me from then going into the village or going elsewhere? Maybe. Don't know.
Well, here's the question, like, so as one of the local businesses, the only local supermarket, obviously Sainsbury's being built as we speak, which does have free parking, I believe, or will have free parking when it's built. So
on Twyford's estate, yeah.
It's from I've sort of drove past it the other day, and the ground is already starting to look level. So I think that's going to be there quite soon. But so say you had to pay for parking, are you going to go to Asda? Or could you be asked to drive 10 minutes further on to, say, Kidsgrove, where you got a Tesco's and a Lidl where it's free? Or do you just think, I'll start it, I'll pay me 60p?
Yeah, and look, I think I think the levels are so, look, if I give you an analogy, we could drive to the Trafford Centre, which is 45 minutes away, and get free parking. We could drive to the Pottery Centre, which is 10 minutes, 15 minutes away, and get charged £1.30 an hour. So if we're there for 6 hours, 7 hours, that's a tenner, give or take. It's going to cost you less in petrol to get to Trafford Centre and back. So therefore, you would go to the Trafford Centre, because now if the Pottery Centre was free and you were there for a significant period of time, that might influence you to go more local than somewhere else. Yeah. So, I think we're fucked in Alsager just because there's not really that much to do around, is there? So you haven't really got much choice.
Do you think that's part of it, though? Do you think that is part
possibly.
of it? Basically, people can't be asked. The people who are going to go shop at Tesco's because they're loyal to Tesco's are going to go to Crewe and Kidsgrove anyway. Yeah. People who are loyal to Asda are probably just going to pay the 60p and lump it.
Look, if we're on a night out, you turn around and say, right, we'll drive into Alsager, we'll leave the car there, we'll pick it up the following morning. Because I really can't be asked to drive 10 minutes down the road and go to Sandbach or whatever, you know what I mean? So I don't think that necessarily is going to influence us. I don't know your thoughts are, Dave, but is it going to detract? Is it going to stop people parking there and then using the local shops? Because basically Alsager is hairdressers, takeaways, and charity shops. So is it going to stop the people from going there, or are they going to go to what's it called, into now Freeport used to be, or whatever it is, or your local, or into Sandbach, or wherever it may be? I don't know. What Dave? What are your thoughts?
For me personally, because I live in Church Lawton, so I'm much closer to Tesco's anyway. So there's no way I'd go to Asda if it was a period I'd have to park. I'd have to pay to park. I'd just go to Tesco's because it's 60-40 already, in terms of distance, or 70-30 maybe. So it's not further away. It is further away, but it's not like, you know, going past it to get somewhere else. The second thing is if you were to go out in the evening, then I suspect that you're just going to push cars to the side streets and they'll just walk into town, because that already happens pretty much anyway down Lodge Road, is it? Down
Lodge Road, Church Road, and all of that. It's like Friday, Saturday night. Yeah, it's packed.
And then the third thing, which I think is, which from my perspective, is like the dentist, for example, the opticians, for example, use the ones in the village. Now, I'm not going to start going to Kidsgrove or another town to avoid parking to change my dentist or my opticians, but I wouldn't pay. I'd just park again in the side street. I normally walk anyway, to be honest, but if it's tipping it down or winter, whatever, I'd probably just park in the side street. So I find it very hard to believe that I would ever pay to park in that car park. So there'll be no positives and only negatives, and a lot of people must be the same as that.
I agree. I think if we went out and, as you said, Dave, what you do is you know, you'd park, and whether it's behind bar 55, if they're going to make that payable, if that is still free, people will go there. People will, as you say, park down Lodge Road. People might park down more Shady Grove and spend 2 minutes walking into Village or wherever it may be, Ashmore's Lane or whatever, you know. So there would be side streets that then become a pain in the arse for local residents because they'd literally just jam packed. So then you start going down the route of, well, what do you put double yellows on? And you start making more double yellows, and then that creates its own issue because then the residents can't park there because even permit holders can't park on double yellows. So therefore you do it, and it's that whole hot potato, isn't it? Of how do you make areas which are permit holders only? Do you make it all double yellow, which means nobody can park there? But
and the cost of all that.
Well, you've got the cost for that, but if you made it all double yellow because you don't want to piss off the residents, then nobody would park the cars in the side streets, which means they then wouldn't go into the town. So then your local bars, your local restaurants, your local shops then wouldn't get the trade anyway, because people think, well, I can't park there because it's not worth me parking there and getting I don't know what's the parking fine, 30 quid, is it now? I don't know what it is. But whatever the parking fine is, that's not worth it. So what I'll do is I'll spend the extra £1.50 in petrol and spend that extra 5 minutes in the car to go to Tesco, and I'll just park there. Do you know what I mean? So I'm probably with you, Dave. I don't see any positive from it at all, if I'm honest.
I suspect that. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it's a positive move in general, charging people for something that was once free. Not a big fan of that, but I suspect it will generate some revenue from that. Oh, I can't be arsed. I'm just going to nip there. I'm in a rush. People are people will put a value on time over money, and I think this is what's banking on that. There's been talk for years over monetizing those car parks, and I suspect this is sort of this finally to fruition, where actually people think people are more time poor now, and you know what, they'll probably just pay it. We're not in an area, like you say, that is necessarily too pressured by finances, and we're talking probably about ourselves, so I apologize if anybody's listening to this and disagrees with me, because I'm sure there are those that are. But I suspect that extra 60p for an hour's parking won't have too much of a financial penalty on other people's lives, and probably will generate a little bit of revenue in the same way that I suppose when they've been recently collecting your garden waste and started charging you for that now extra. Yeah. I don't know about just quickly, has that angered up the blood amongst anybody?
Furious.
Are you furious, or have you paid it?
There was a disagreement in the household, and I lost, so it was paid.
She wants you paid.
And because we've got compost bins and everything, but you do need that as well certain times of the year, and if you don't have that, you're then back and forward to the tip, and it's a bit. You've got to keep it, like food waste, for example. You want to do the responsible thing and not just put it into the black bin. We don't put it into the compost bins because we live near fields. We get rice, mice, and rats. If you put food waste, they dig up and get into it. So we put it into the brown bin. If we don't have the brown bin, it's going in the black bin. So basically, we paid 54 quid for the year to essentially do the right thing for the environment, even though they take the bin, they empty the bin, they then compost it down and then sell it or use it to save money or make money. I don't agree that you should pay for that at all when it's discouraging people from doing the right thing for the environment.
That's my concern. You know, that was my concern. Like you say, recycling, and I thought it was a fantastic idea, recycling it in the first place. But now, it actively. Have you paid it?
Yeah, grudgingly, but that's just because, as you say, you don't want to. I say you don't want to do the wrong thing, and you don't want to put your food waste in your normal black bin, and then you don't want to put your plastics in there, because actually it's really important that you recycle your plastics, because it's the right thing to do, and all of the literature, media, and research says it is the right thing to do, and that helps the environment, and that helps your future generations, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, we've paid it. It was paid grudgingly, just because you have your food waste, you have your green waste, whether it's your grass cuttings or this, that, and the other. I don't want to be bagging them up and then leaving them in an area that is going to stink the place out. And then, because if I'm honest, I'm not going to go to the tip every time I have a singular bag of green waste or food waste or whatever. So you're going to need to find an area within your property that you can put them in, and where they have a bin store or whatever. But you're going to have to find a place where you can then store them for a period of time until you have 2, 3, 4 bags. And then you think, oh, fucking, I've got a tip run now. And then you take them all, and then you do it at the tip, and then you come back. And it's like, that's a ball ache, if I'm honest. So therefore, effectively, are you paying whatever it is, 58 quid a year for convenience? Or are you paying 58 quid because it's the right thing to do? And I think some people are both. I think some people are like, oh, fuck it, I'll just pay it. Do you know what I mean?
Again, it's that time, Paul. You can't be asked to drive down to the tip. I mean, you was criticising when you had a service there that did it for you. Do you think then, just quickly before we close up, do you think that the local councils then have a contingency plan for people dumping garden waste in the old silver recycling bin?
I don't know, actually, but I don't know.
I hope so, for their sake.
But you just mentioned a point, Adam. It's not just about convenience, though, is it? Because
no.
Because they're basically saying if you've either got to put it into the silver bin or the rubbish bin, or you've got to make the effort, like Gaz said, to go to the tip. But if you're going to the tip, you're then using your car. Everyone's using the car to a trip to the tip to put it there. So it just doesn't work at all. You're basically just being blackmailed. People that have got a conscience about the environment are essentially being blackmailed into doing the right thing when they were already doing the right thing. And then what if they now want to charge you 54 quid for your recycling bin, if that comes next?
Well, that will come next. I've got no doubt. I've got no doubt. You start with the green, and then you get your recycling, and then it won't be long before actually they'll start charging you for your normal waste. And it doesn't take a genius to work out that's the natural process of what will happen. And I'm not saying it's next year or 2 years or 10 years, but there will come a point where you think, well, I'm not paying 150 quid for my 3 bins, but then you'll end up with fucking rubbish bags out the side of your house. Think, oh, fucking hell,
that's nice, Gaz. Rubbish bags piled up outside. Nice segue to July the 5th under a Labour government.
Do
you see what I did there? I've made full circle, Dave.
It will take longer than a day for it to go past. Final question as we close out then. Question from Paul1918 via YouTube. Will these issues you are talking about influence your vote in local elections? Yes or no? Answers only. David?
No.
Gaz?
No.
Yes. Funny enough, I am in my old age getting a bit reactionary, if you hadn't guessed. So, folks, we're going to bring this episode to a close, and me and Gaz are going to go outside and have a bare-chested fight to the death about the local elections, and then have a cuddle.
Have a cuddle in the hot tub and a beer.
So, folks, in all seriousness, though, it's fine to disagree about these things, but don't. I see so many people using like bad language and name calling just because somebody disagrees with you. Just listen to their opinions, and if it's different from yours, it's fine. Listen to it. It might influence your opinion, it might not. But hear them out. They could be right. If you listen to Tall Boy Radio, goddamn it, we're right. So, Dave, sum it all up for us as we say goodbye.
Sum it all up. Oh, crikey, that's a big one. Look, healthy debate. Try and understand each other's view. Try to think beyond personalities. Try to think beyond what's happened in the past. Try to understand what's going to happen in the future. There's plenty of people you can ask and talk about. Don't get into an echo chamber, though. Don't listen to the media. Try and do your own independent research on what actually matters, and then make the best informed decision you can. But most importantly, vote. Even if you spoil your ballot paper, That's better than just not voting at all. So they are counted, but they don't release the numbers. But at least vote. Don't not vote.
100%. Gaza?
Yeah, I echo what Dave just said there. Absolutely, you should vote. And again, we joked on a previous episode, even if you went and wrote Turbo Radio over your vote, your ballot paper, whatever, just you go and vote, because then it proves that you've taken the time to do that. And you know what? A healthy debate is fine. Me and Adam have known each other and Dave, really, we've known each other for probably too many years that we care to recall, and we rarely agree on anything really, but we're still mates. Whether that's the case next week, you'll have to tune in to find out, sort of thing. And but look, joking aside, a healthy debate is fine, and Adam knows that me and Adam and I know that Adam and I, we disagree on a number of things. Don't get me wrong, we agree on lots of things, but we disagree on a number of things. And me and Dave are similar. We'll agree on lots of things, and I think if you were to ask us where we're going to vote, we potentially probably would agree with each other, and our votes probably would be the same. But we disagree on lots of other things. So, a healthy debate is fine. You don't need to be mudslinging. You don't need to be aggressive. You just need to be respectful of that person's decision and try to think of it from their point of view. And you're always respectful of each other's opinions, and you move forward.
Indeed. And it's many years before it'll get this contentious again, unless, of course, we have hung Parliament and we have to go to the election again, as happened in the 70s. But that was fun. But I'm going to nail my colours to the mast. I'm going to nail my colours to the mast. I'm going to say, congratulations, England, on winning the European Championships in 2024. Gareth Southgate, you deserve that.
Sir Gareth
It's
Southgate.
coming your way, boy. Enjoy it.